Welcome back, fellow armchair generals, to Panzer Corps 2, and we're still in Typhoon. And all the noise racket you're hearing there is just really battle sounds. Trust me, it's not the gardener outside the window. But before we get into the game, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. You can even follow me over on Twitch. And of course, you can hit that like button. And I really love comments, even if you're not going to stay around. Just say hi, I'll answer you back. Normally it's not this rackety, but I decided to go on, and yes, we're recording this live right now on Twitch and YouTube. Make a shop run soon, got a face mask from work, wish me luck. Yes, very good luck. Also, you can wear gloves. I wore disposable gloves and took them off and disposed them in the trash after going to the shop, and I'm set for probably 2 weeks or more now, so before I'm going to go back again. But enough of that, because you didn't come here for that. You came to be entertained about other topics and not just more of the same. And there goes the rockets now. Okay, we have 6 more turns to take this. I don't know that we're going to take this Moscow victory hex, and we've gotten a lot of points so far, but I don't know that we're going to get, yeah, these guys are sort of proper bombers here. Will do more suppressing work against the ATs, so we're gonna do that, but not as much as I was hoped. And no, the estimates aren't the actual thing, because there is a die roll. So just because it says you're gonna kill 3 or whatever doesn't mean that you're actually gonna do that. That's just an expectation. Does it affect? Oh, a lot. It affects, and that's a good topic. Unit effectiveness. Where is the unit? Here we go. Here is this is a super unit here, and it affects it a lot. Now we can see down here it is 3 stars level of experience. It's working towards its 4th. It can get up to total of 5, but we can click on unit info, and we can sort of see from here it can have up to 3 well, somewhere sort of, I believe it's max 3 heroes. And currently, and I started this out because for this thing, for an overrun challenge, with 2 heroes, double attack. So this unit gets 2 attacks every turn as a normal thing for this unit instead of 1. And it's also an overrun leader, which makes it even more likely to overrun and get sort of and it also, notice it move and attack actions of the unit will be replenished, as opposed to just normal overruns that if it hasn't already expended its movement things. Plus it has steamroller for the unit itself, not from unstoppable offensive steamroller here. That is from the unit itself. So that, which is any kill for this unit, not just ones that normally would trigger an overrun, but any kill triggers an overrun. So this is sort of an overrun super unit, somewhat weakened now, but not terribly. And so like this unit here, ignores entrenchment, and also has the unstoppable, because that's, you can earn that with just doing enough overruns. Now we're having other battle sounds. Looking for other unit citations. Artillery, it's sort of slow to get those. I don't know how many we have. Yes, that's just all battle sounds. The machine guns are terrible right now outside. Yes, that's all machine gun fire. Or is that airplanes droning overhead? This just has ignore entrenchment. So, okay, not Yes, Demo, that's right. We already looked at him. So, yes, they do affect. The number of stars you have affects, and so the experience on the unit, and what heroes and what traits they do. So, it is important to, one, keep your units alive, because if simply having the prestige to put new units onto the, replacement units onto the map, yeah, if you do lose a unit, you want to replace it, but it's better to keep it alive, and it's as best as possible, as practical, to do elite replacements instead of standard ones, so you continue to maintain your level of eliteness, because as you can see, the formula, it'll go down depending on how much. And yes, I want to check the chat out. The skills achieved, yes. Okay, feel that one. A single 5-star hero stacked elite panzer unit wipes out 6 full enemy units in one turn. That can happen. That can happen. My sort of was starting out without with just sort of regular start was 3 in one turn, 3 units. But yeah, it can happen if you get like a 5-star and everything stacked up. What comes after Unstoppable is there seems to be levels. Yeah, I'm not necessarily ground to everything, so I'm not sure. Yes, and that's what the heroes are, in essence, sort of officers to the unit. And of course, you also have the general traits, generals, comma, or traits. Yes, MG42s. That's it. They're MG42s. That's it. They're going on outside. You do not. Overstrength is no longer based upon your star levels. You can just have overstrength units. Now, I picked as a balancing issue, one of the negative traits is no overstrength. So none of the units that I'm playing with will go to overstrength. So you won't see that in this playthrough with these units, but that, yes, is very much a thing too. Okay, well, you can move around a bit, so we're gonna come up here and suppress you and maybe take you out. Okay, you fired, and then, well, since you moved off of there, I can now do another airstrike on you and maybe kill you fully because you're driving away over a river, and bye-bye. Yes, so in very weakened conditions. Now we want to, yes, we'll move you up to here, you up to give more fire suppression. Now, if we were to move the tanks, even my unstoppable one, they may do return fire, but here, hopefully, they didn't push them as hard as I'd hoped. Okay. Well, like I say, I've got the turns. Oh, and there is no benefit in the game to achieving the mission early. You just win or lose, and it's just whether we'll see once I kill the last unit on this hex here whether I want to, and we will. And I was already sort of looking at this sort of an attack here. You shift to there. Okay, well, let's see what we can do with... Miniguns, yeah, bit more like that. Okay, Nagaro, like I say, be safe. I was overly cautious, I'm sure, when I went, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion. Being overly cautious at this time. And my protective things know I was not doing anything too ridiculous, but yeah. Okay. Flame panzers, we'll move them up. Okay, so thinking that's all we're doing. They got the AAs pointing skyward there. Okay, end that turn. Yeah, I don't know if any of that's really worth it. Okay, suppress these guys. Yes, I've got one of those heroes twice in a turn. Double tack Stefan Muller here. That is an overwhelming amount of benefit. Okay, they retreated back. These guys can hit there, and we'll fall back to here. I'm going to take our double attack experts. Ah, well, this unit now has been decorated with Anti-Infantry Veteran Level 1 award plus 1/2 soft attack. So my special unit now has 2 bonuses. You can come up here and kill this. Now, as minute you take this, the second you, even before like following through on this, it ends the mission. So I'm going to look around here to see if there's anything that I really want to do. See if I can actually kill a unit here. Now they've overstrength this one to 20. This infantry is normally just 15. Okay, they cannot reply. And they fell back. They're going to come up and occupy the trench. Yeah, see, that would be stupid. That would be not terribly useful. And they got that, which got me a little more prestige before the end. Okay, yeah, not that, 5 turns I might be able to take that, but that is not needed, as I understand it, to win the scenario and go on to the next one. And I'm going to want to have my forces in the best possible condition for the next mission. 2 times fire rate plus 5 attack on tanks, no retaliation enemy unit. Oh wow, yeah, that's sort of like overkill. Oh yeah. Yep, you get to go in and win the mission. So, Gates of Moscow. We've won a victory. Loading up.
The horrid Russian winter is hitting our forces far harder than anyone expected. And our opportunity for a quick defeat of the Soviet Union diminishes by the hour.
Okay.
The rain and the mud freezing into snow and ice. One final push to Moscow is going to be attempted. Hardly ideal conditions to start with, but I still have more bad news for you. Forward recon elements of 3rd Panzer Group have reported major Soviet reinforcements have arrived from the east. There is no doubt that these troops are already entrenching throughout the city. Therefore, your mission will need to be broken down into 3 distinct parts. First, you must push your troops through the defensive lines around Moscow. I recommend focusing on here or here. Secondly, critical government locations across Moscow will need to be secured decisively. I suggest you start with the Kremlin, here, and then go here and here. But the choice is yours. Finally, once the last of the city's defenders have been cleared out, you will need to hold the city against any potential waves of Soviet reinforcements. It now falls on you to carry out this most critical of operations. Good luck, Herr General.
Okay, we're going to end the briefing there. Okay, we now have Michael Meyer. Where have I heard that name before? For extraordinary heroism, and he is a butcher. +5. Okay, here's one of these. +5 for attacking infantry units. Though he looks rather infantry himself, but we can put that anywhere. So we have that. We have a new control bonuses at the end. So this mission, if I understand it, will take 25 points, because even once we take at least all the main victory hexes here, they're going to then get a chance to counterattack them. Okay. And we're going to use this time here. You could have left the last victory hex open and taken Moscow. I think, yeah, I might have, Brett, but I wanted to have my units in the best shape possible for this mission, and I think it was counterproductive, but I may be wrong on that. I don't know what the math would show, but okay. Let me gather my thoughts here for... If the Second World War becomes truly a world war with America in it, Germany, I would say under most conditions, cannot win a war of attrition. I say most conditions because, yeah, under most conditions it can't win a war of attrition. But as we can see, and this is a good example of it, if you have a war or a maneuver and decision, Germany can win, and we can see that in France, the Battle of France. We all just sort of look, oh yeah, they won in France and whatever, but Germany's doomed to lose the war. Well, obviously they were doomed to lose the war because of they lost it. But in my opinion, it, you know, you can make different decisions and have different outcomes. France, I know, was really worried that Britain was bombing Germany before the Battle of France starts, because France was worried about the overwhelming size of the Luftwaffe. They were just worried that, if you poke the bear's going to get upset and just come and overwhelm us. Because it's just, the Luftwaffe was so huge. Now, in fact, France had a larger, effective, not just old airplanes that aren't being used anymore, but had a larger, modern, effective air force than Germany did. That's without adding in Britain, without adding in the Dutch and the Belgian air forces, which were, I know a little more about the Belgian air forces, which did exist, smallish, but still they were there and they were operating. So if you combine those air forces, they would overwhelm Germany's air force. But that wasn't the impression that France had. So France was working under the impression that Germany had... Now, Germany's air force very well may have been better because it was better coordinated with... James Holland's book talking about the, sort of up until 1940 or whatever, through 1940 in the war, is very good at this. I mean, I have some problems with his book, and they're sort of minor in the overall thing, but very good at showing how much better coordinated air offensive Germany was able to do versus any of the Allies. Britain gets good in the Battle of Britain, but that's only by the time you get to the Battle of Britain of coordinating its air forces, where the French and like the Belgians are like, well, we're going to send up some airplanes and they're going to fly around and see if we can find the German air units, and then we're going to launch air attacks against those air units that we see, like the bombers coming, and they're going to go up and fight them, and then they're going to go. It was all just sort of random, uncoordinated, maybe within one air group or one air unit of one sort or another. I don't know how the French organized it. They may have been very well trained and very well organized and led, but they weren't coordinated between themselves everywhere. So Germany was able to overwhelm the system. So if it were to come down to an air war of simply who can build build and train, because it's also training of pilots, because at times, like during the Battle of Britain, Britain was producing more planes, fighter planes, than they could have pilots to put into the seats to fight those planes. And this is just Britain, during the height of the Battle of Britain. So it's both train effective pilots, fighter pilots, and produce planes. The Western Allies are going to win against, the air war against Germany if it's just that attrition, because they can produce more planes and make more pilots than Germany can, and so they're going to win. Well, obviously, Germany defeats France and defeats the expeditionary forces of Britain. And so it shows that if you have a war of maneuver and decision, the smaller, now I could say weaker, but weaker in the terms of numbers of troops, numbers of equipment, tanks, aircraft, whatever. Yes, Germany was weaker, but not necessarily weaker in a military power in its effectiveness, because obviously they overwhelmed, and Tippett's starting to play Arma 3. Overwhelm the French, British, Dutch, and Belgian, and Danish and Norwegian, basically all at once, armies. So obviously they were more powerful in that sense and able to move it to where it needs to happen. Effective combat power at the point of contact with the enemy, they were able to overwhelm the Western Allies in a few short weeks. So they were obviously more powerful in that sense. Okay, we'll get to the Soviet Union. If the Soviets can play the delaying game, and countries like Britain stay in the war, the Soviets can win the war of attrition against Germany. Definitely once America comes in with America's aid, they can go from, win the war of attrition. Maybe, you want to, listen. Yeah, no, I'm just teasing you. No, you can play other games while you listen to me. I figure Brett is also doing so. Maybe everyone is. So, if you maybe not win the war of attrition, but fight the war of attrition and keep from losing it. definitely with Western aid, they're able to turn it around and push back against Germany and obviously take Berlin. But I say they can't do that without aid, direct aid to them, as well as, landings in Italy and France and other places, and threats of them even before then, distracting large amounts of German resources. In my opinion, if it is just a war between Germany and the Soviet Union, and clearing Poland and whatever out of the way, and forget Italy, forget Romania could sell oil, but forget the Romanian army, forget all the rest of that stuff. If it's just Germany versus the Soviet Union, I think Germany's going to win, even in a war of sort of attrition. Very good. Well, we hope you're safe. Hope you didn't catch anything. And so Germany's, I think, would win that if it's just Germany versus the Soviet Union. But it's never just Germany versus the Soviet Union. And even when it's just like Britain, well, Germany's doing lots of things like building flak towers and putting flak guns all over them. Well, all those flak guns, whether directly could have been put on the Eastern Front, sometimes literally like the flak 18s, the 88 millimeter anti-aircraft guns as anti-aircraft guns, or just simply using the manufacturing capabilities to make anti-tank guns and make field artillery, to put more of that in the front, as well as making more artillery shells instead of flak shells, because it's the same basic process. Germany could have had more ammunition, more effect going after the Soviets. Just simply that they have to react to the British, and not always with, infantry divisions in the front line somewhere, whether that's North Africa or Italy or France or something, but simply guarding the coast, occupying occupied zones, doing flak operations, doing night fighters, all of that stuff that they have to do specifically to fight Britain. We're just talking about Britain before America gets into the war. That they're distracting a lot of resources away from the battle with the Soviets. Could the Germans have won a war of maneuver and decision against the Soviets? Absolutely. There's nothing saying that they could not win. The Germans did not prepare as well, and primarily, and I think our IKB can back me up on this, as well as they could have for the rail, or expanding their rail networks into the Soviet Union. The one area that Germany does the American plan for industrial productions is in railway engines. They don't do it in any other field of the endeavors. And the one area that Germany wins the war in production, basically, is railway engines. I forget the guy's name, the guy who's in charge of the German railways and who's also in charge of railway productions, settles on one type of locomotive engine and starts producing that one type of locomotive engine and never changes. The U.S. does make changes over time, but they're very slow because they don't want to interrupt production levels. Never changes that engine type for any improvements or any production efficiency, making a little less. I'll get to some of the chat. I'm not totally ignoring you, but we'll get back to it in a moment. Never trying to lower the quality to, produce it faster, because they just produce a decent basic railway engine, and they produce it like the Americans do, in that they set it up, the production lines, that machinery, it makes just one, one type of railway wheel, one type of valve, or whatever it is in the railway engine, and they just keep making that. They don't switch machinery. They don't make a batch of, we're making 50 of these breeching rings, and then we're making 50 mount things, and then switching the machinery back and forth for production of tanks. Like the Germans were constantly, they would make a batch run of 50, 100, 500, 1,000, whatever it would be, of one thing. Then they would then spend the day or two or whatever it is resetting the tooling on the machinery to make something else and do that. Where the Americans would just they're making that widget. This machine makes that widget 24 hours a day if they're running it 24 hours a day, because they did do in the US, multiple shifts on the factory, and you just make that one widget. And until we determined that no matter what, we could possibly never use any more of those widgets. And then that machine stopped making those widgets. Whether the war's over or like the half tracks, they eventually, I think it's sometime late 44, they stopped making half tracks in America because we have so many half tracks parked around America, the sort of M3 half tracks, that we can't possibly think of what we could possibly do with more of them. So they just stopped making them. And I think they have enough spare parts, so they just eventually stopped making them because, we can't use any more of them. We can't give any more of them away, partially because we just don't have the shipping, so they stopped making them. And other times they stop making stuff is because they've changed the model enough that they're no longer using, the Grant/Lee tanks. They're going over to the Sherman, so they stop making parts for some of those things. That tank, if it's not used anywhere else, and they've made them enough spare parts that they go, well, we can't use any more carburetors for this thing or whatever it may be, and so they stop making it. And then once they stop, then they will convert that machinery to making something else. That's the American way of production in the war. Germany is constantly shifting back and forth. Much more flexible, much more responsive to the needs, Germany is, but efficiency's down. But the railway engines, they keep it. I'm not surprised that they're still used. They were supposedly I just watched one 1 hour documentary on the railway, and so I'm not nearly the expert that IKB is, but I do know this about it, that they were good, efficient. They were sort of the Model T, they're sort of the DC-3 of aircraft. They were of railway engines. They're just good, basic stuff, and they massively pump up the number of locomotives during the war and pump huge numbers of them out. And so that part of the railway capability Germany does quite well. But the forward planning and preparation for dealing with the railways in occupying territories and thinking, well, maybe because I don't think they ever did a single one, but maybe some of bridges are going to be blown up. Maybe we could sort of quickly, and the Germans were capable of this, prefabricating a sort of standardized trestle system that's modular, that we can just bring in on railway tracks or on trucks or whatever, and quickly get to places. And so long as they haven't I think they're called the footings of the bridges, the concrete parts on either side of the riverbank, haven't blown those up, we can just simply almost just in a matter of days or hours, but 2 or 3 days at most, have a bridge, because you just blow up the rest and get the rest of the crap out of the way and just lay over a modular railway system, sort of like a Bailey Bridge that the Americans were making. They could have easily designed something like that, and so it doesn't have, you can have varying length, just have it in 10-foot sections or whatever in the bolt together, and just slap it on and go. But they never do anything like that, so they have to try to repair bridges instead of replace them, because if you really do a really good job, but you have to have the engineers and you have to have the right explosives to blow the stuff up on either side of the riverbanks and collapse it in to make it really hard to rebuild. So they never prepare these kind of things, and so they could have kept the supply flowing better for the German advancement into the Soviet Union. I know this is a long talk. Sorry if you don't enjoy this stuff, but I hope you do. You can just jump ahead until I start deploying stuff if you want to. Maybe I should have put that note up in the text if you just want to see the gameplay. So Germany definitely could have made it to Moscow, because and I know I've talked and had a long talk about the Kiev encirclement earlier. They could have pushed to Moscow. They would have gotten to Moscow effectively before the winter storms, I consider snowstorms or winter snow. I don't know if they would have beaten these. They did make huge trench works out there. I don't know how effective they would have been. They were partly just to mobilize the people into feeling that they're doing good for defenses, partly I think to try to be effective defenses. So they definitely could have gotten there. Now, how hard would it have been to take Moscow? I don't know. You have the Kremlin somewhere here, which should be a big fortified fort. That's what Kremlin basically means, castle or whatever. As I said, I think quite possibly Stalin could have fled, the NKVD fled, and the troops remaining might have just gone, if they're leaving, I'm not fighting. And it might have, especially if Germany seemed, the impression going back to, that's why I brought it up, the French impression that the German Luftwaffe was overwhelmingly strong. If the Germans rushed in here and appeared to the Russians to be unstoppable, they might not have fought very hard. They might have fought super hard. It might have been a Stalingrad thing. I don't know. We don't know what would have happened. We do know that, because I know that Stalin could have fled, because he definitely thought of it at different stages. I'm not saying by the time the Germans are knocking on the door he was thinking of it, but there was definitely stages that they were thought about leaving Moscow. So he could definitely have fled. He could, and the NKVD, to keep its power base, might not want to have its loyal troops die fighting in Moscow, executing deserters or whatever. They might have fled, and that very well might have meant the collapse of Moscow, because there were two factions, one anti-Stalinist communist and two just anti-Bolsheviks that hated Stalin and whatnot, that very well might have welcomed, especially if they thought they could have a diminished Russia. I don't think they would have been in there, because they went through the Brest-Litovsk Treaty of World War I and had major areas of Western Russia cut off. Yeah, they were going to lose the Ukraine and know that it wasn't going to be maybe good for them, but they could probably negotiate some sort of settlement. And Hitler was open to the idea of some sort of Russia, even a Bolshevik Russia, a diminished Bolshevik Russia, continue to exist after a victory, because he definitely saw it to be a multi-generational fight against the East. He just wanted to conclude a war and stabilize the front and absorb new territories to then get ready for whether the next war in 5 years or the next war in 20 years. I don't quite know, and I'm sure he didn't know when the next war would have happened. And yes, the fighters are droning overhead again. Interesting, IKB. I'll get to the chat in a moment. So, and as we talk about the counteroffensive, both sort of planning here as well as the actual winter counteroffensive along the front, by holding this railway hub, you make moving units to the front and supplying them, you got to have that critical thing, all needed to be done, especially in winter, by rails in any meaningful strategical sense. Sure, you can have a railway hub and drive trucks to wherever the front line is, nearby. Like as if this is the railway, you get to here and the front line's up here. Yeah, trucks, wagons, sleighs, whatever, can operate potentially, depending on conditions, but potentially operate to the front. But the big strategical movements can't be done by wagons, sleighs, horse-drawn sleighs, because those were a thing in Russia, or by trucks in winter particularly. So you are in the Respina, however you say it, the mud season. You can't do that in a strategical sense in Russia. You have to use the railways for any strategical movement of units or of supplies. And Moscow is critical. And so if you have to go around Moscow, and you have to go way around Moscow, it takes 3 times as long to move the same amount of supplies or units in the same amount of time. It takes 3 times the number of trains. And Russia can't just magic out 3 times the number of trains. So you drastically reduce the ability for a counteroffensive, and as sort of this scenario is alluding to, the counteroffensive that I think would have happened would have been directly focused on, if it would have happened, if they hadn't already surrendered, but very well could have happened, would have been focused on Moscow And if Germany, because it's not going to be like Napoleon. Napoleon, when he comes in, Moscow's burning, and his whole army is sitting in Greater Moscow. Germany's army is spread out all over the front, going all the way back. So it's not like it's going to sit here and starve. It might not be getting rapid replacements of shells and ammunition and whatnot way up at Moscow, but it ain't going to be sitting there starving in the winter. It's going to get some level of supplies. They had enough food in Stalingrad when Stalingrad surrendered. Part of the reason they had more food in Stalingrad when Stalingrad surrenders is because the supply sergeants, the supply forces in there, thought they were going to have to survive longer than they were, so they rationed the food out to keep it in there. So the Soviets come in and find full warehouses of food in there, because they were planning, well, we're not getting very much food. They could have, in a food sense, at their sort of near starvation level, could have held out for another month or two or whatever it was. It's just they were running out of ammunition, and the Germans or the Soviets were continuing to be overwhelming them. So it was right for Paulus. He needed to surrender, but they were rationing food out. So really, and this was German food imported either early on, before the cutoff, or imported via the air. So Germany would have been able to supply food. So the troops wouldn't have been starving. And if you're talking about a limited front and you're holding the defensive, you very well may be able to hold out against, because again, sort of we talk about when I play war plan or strategic command, the inability to, do overstacking. You can't in reality overstack fronts. So you can only bring some of the forces to bear at any one time against the Germans. So I think Moscow is critical, as you see. Now I'm going to look at the chats, and then we will get to deploying, and then we will continue this. Okay, let me go through here. I'm not really going. Okay, the war was lost the moment the Soviet Union and the USA. Yeah, by the time the USA comes into the war and they're able to hold Moscow, it becomes a war of attrition, Kai. That's absolutely right, by that point. And like I say, in most cases, the one case I would say Germany would be able to win a war of attrition against the US is had they successfully defeated the Soviet Union and secured enough, though they would wreck it in various ways we won't go into at the moment, enough food growing areas, particularly in the Ukraine, and enough critical resources like oil and various mineral deposits and steel and tungsten and whatnot type deposits. Once they secured enough of those things to supply German industry, I don't know that the U.S., because you now free up all these really good armored divisions and are able to build more army units, and your air units, instead of also being out on the Eastern Front, can all be protecting Germany. I don't know that the U.S. could be able to do a D-Day invasion and then push in. I think Germany might have been able to concentrate enough force to deal with it if it's not using its frontline divisions against the Russians. So Germany might be able to win a war of attrition at that point. That's just a might. I'm not sure. But that's there, but only under those conditions. Okay, there was not only numbers and logistics were added with the USA, the equipment, after initial mistakes, tactical skill. Yeah, tactical skill, the Russians got better. Yes, the U.S. was high quality, high volume of equipment, most assuredly, just going through the chat here. Yep, get things you can store away, IKB. Going to... Yes, the Kriegs locomotive, that's exactly right. That's what I was exactly thinking of, IKB. Pictures of the Americans using Bailey bridges to build railway bridges for trains, as long as you build the bridge. The required... Excellent, yes. And I don't know how, weight tolerances of the Bailey bridges. I'm sure you can move trains across them. I just don't know how overloaded weight-wise they can be. But Germany could have easily... Germans knew... Germans weren't stupid about things, and if anything, they overcomplicated both their production side and their product side. But they could have easily built modular things like a Bailey Bridge, and I'm sure it's something that did occur to some Germans somewhere. It's not like it was such a foreign and alien concept that they wouldn't figure that out until they saw the Americans do it, because they were doing some of that type of stuff. I don't have maybe a good example to come up with at the moment, but it isn't like, well, they just didn't think that way. No, they did think that way, modular stuff, but looking at it, they didn't prepare for it well. Yes, IKB, he did. That's my understanding too. That there were trains, and I'm sure he could also fly out to Stalin if he thought he needed to. So, and if he does that, morale of units and loyalist stuff changes immediately. So, yeah, that is a thing. And so, if you do that, things can shift and change. Most assuredly. Okay, well, let's look here. I know this is going to be sort of a boring episode, no probably real action, and I'll make a note of that. Well, let's look at upgrade possibilities for here. No new equipment for it looks like for our armor forces. Well, I guess we can just come here and it'll show us new equipment. I don't know if we're going to have new stuff showing up. Okay, we're having captured. We have some captured 45 millimeter, just one it looks like, of anti-tank guns. I don't think we'll use that. And some captured AA. Oh, we have the SIG 33-2 SF here, as often called in War Thunder, Sturmpanzer. Now, and we have the prototype here if we want to have that, and we have captured some artillery. They only made a few of these. I want to say 12, but maybe it was like 24 or something like this of these things. These are elongated Panzer II hulls, special production, and to the best of my knowledge, all of them were sent to North Africa. So having them, time-wise, they were available now, but they were really only sent to North Africa and not to here. And our fighters are the same type. I'm just mostly looking. Okay, well, we have these are the new models, so we'll see about that. And no new. Okay, so we have new. I want to specifically see on my model of Ju-87, if we were to upgrade them, what is the cost and the benefit? Okay, it's going to cost us 38, which is very little. No extra slots, which is a thing. Sometimes it can cost extra slots, but other than more prestige costs to replace and upgrade things, because overall prestige cost does affect replacement cost as far as I know. So an improvement on tactical capability. So what I'm going to do is, before we do that, well, we're going to elite reinforce, and then we're going to upgrade for 20 and upgrade for 20. So as cheap as we can to upgrade them and get them there. Yes, and Ares missing having the SIGs here. Okay, so we have that. I don't know weather conditions, how well we'll be doing with bombers. I don't think we're gonna. Oh, what? Okay, let's see. We have 10 slots available, and that would cost. Okay, no new slots. Oh, okay, so yeah, that would be a good upgrade. Now, these both have the same gun on them, so obviously a Panzer I hull with just a field gun placed on top of it with the wheels still there, versus this is a better improvement. I sort of like the the grills, I think you pronounce it, not quite sure, just read the thing in the book, is the 150 millimeter gun put on a, you did several different versions of it, on a 38T chassis, which I presume will be coming. Again, the same gun, but just better vehicle, a little more fuel, a little more movement, same number of slots. I don't see a downside, so let's first upgrade this. So we're upgrading hopefully more on this cost, and then we'll go over to that. There we go. So we will use that. Now, I'm good with all of these units, including the cavalry. The cavalry, actually, I think is working out rather well. And you can look at its stats. It's not that bad. Doesn't take up too many slots. As we saw, I want a few, which we just have 2 here that are good, sort of better anti-tank, and the rest are anti-infantry. So we're going to, okay, you're fully upgraded. Gotta watch our numbers, but yeah, I want to do that. What can we upgrade to? Okay, better tank killing. And this is obviously what it's supposed to do. But I'm not sure that we're 119. I don't know. We'll first just elite reinforce that. And we did lose our 222 last mission. And let's, what's that going to call? Oh, 51. Yeah, we can pay for that. 38 and 12. Yes. Okay, our fighters. Don't know if we're going to upgrade the reconnaissance. And what's this going to cost to elite? 147. Well, before I do that, let's see about adding some more units. Well, okay, we're going to have a massive city to fight in. I don't know how well manned this is going to be. I have literally not played this before. So let's, well, what is already deployed? Anything deployed already? No, I didn't know if there was you know, other units. Okay. Oh, pioneers are 4, infantry are I think it's worth another pioneer unit, and we will motorize this. Purchase. Okay, so we got that. Five tanks is enough, but I would like I was saying, let's see if we can get a 222. Yeah. Here for 2 slots. I like the other ones better, but just taking up slots. So I'll leave us with 4 slots. We can use the reconnaissance. Well, what can we do? What can we do here? We have 4 slots remaining. So we could do just an infantry. Do we want bridge bucking pioneers or pioneer to go across that? We can also deploy down here, so we maybe should deploy down here and take that and push up and push around. Okay, well, what can we get for 2? Kradschützen. anti-tank. I suspect we're going to be facing an anti-tank wave. So what I think we're going to do here is I'll close this, come back to here, and we're going to send these guys to the reserve, which now opens up one more slot. So I want to grab a grenadier trucks, so I don't want to use the slot, and that leaves us with 2. And what I think we're going to do, and partially just to mix it up, we're going to do some of the Pack 50s. They did do it this way, but more of the units would have been towed, but like this with that, but whatever. I don't know, I guess no, there's hardly any benefit to having that, so this is better to do. Okay, there we go. Railway Bailey Bridge, cool. I didn't know there was a specific thing like that. Gorilla, like a gorilla without the O, gorilla. Gorilla. Okay, a gorilla. Okay, a gorilla. Sort of like a gorilla. Gorilla, as in a fight, you know, a fighter, not a gorilla, but gorilla. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I read a lot of the German words, and I'm sure I'm butchering them. Okay, well, since this is one of our objectives, we need to take that, and we can come up after this objective here. We don't want to put some of our super units here. Let's put some infantry. Let's put our mobile artillery down here, because this is going to be our mobile operations area. Okay, now we're going to need to take up here a bit, I think, on the flanks, just to hold our flanks, and then push down the railways into Moscow. I think will be part of the plan. Well, also let's put the reconnaissance down here. I think that would be a good option. The other reconnaissance, let's get you there. Standard infantry there. Yeah, he'll be good to swing around that way. Yes, we have, I think, plenty to fully reinforce these. Now, just because we do have a bit of a supply hex situation, we will want a little bit of force down here with some artillery. I'm gonna hope air power. We're gonna make a save after this, but if the weather is, see, it's sunny now, but the first turn will be overcast. That doesn't mean we can't use, but if we can use our air power, this will be great. If not, and just barely, but yes, enough to do that. Oh, we didn't have enough to do that. Well, we can do one. Okay, now if we can get our good pioneers here. With our artillery and our anti-air behind it, because again, the enemy loves attacking with Air power. These guys ignore entrenchments, so they can be useful there. These are the pioneers here. So our other pioneers. I guess could come in from this front here. We're going to put these anti-tank down here. Okay, just air power left. Let's see if we can sort of centrally locate it here. Be able to escort all of the units. Okay, well, we're gonna save this. Now, we're not going to end the live stream, so everybody here can hang loose. But we're going to end the YouTube playthrough because, and I'll label this just deployment and talk and deployment, so those who just here for the gameplay can skip this out. So, yeah, but we will start our initial assault on Moscow next episode. Thanks, everyone. See you next time for more historical gaming.